in a world not too far from dreams, where snow falls without a sound, and the stars keep gentle watch from above, there lived a story told softly through the years, a tale about beauty, jealousy, kindness, and rest. Tonight we begin that story again slowly, sleepily, like a whisper carried through a forest blanketed in moonlight. Let the day fall away, let the quiet take hold. This is the story of Snow White. A long time ago, during the cold hush of winter, a queen sat near a tall window in her palace. Snowflakes danced lazily through the sky, settling gently on the black iron sill. The queen, wrapped in silver-threaded wool, was sewing with a delicate hand. As she pricked her finger with the needle, a drop of blood landed on the snow below. She smiled faintly and whispered to the wind, "I wish for a child with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony." Seasons passed, and her wish came true. A daughter was born, and the queen named her Snow White. The child was gentle from the beginning, curious, kind, and quiet. Her eyes, though young, held a deep understanding of the world around her. But joy, as it often does in stories like this, did not last forever. The queen became ill and passed into the stillness of memory. The king, lonely and burdened with the weight of rule, remarried. The new queen was striking in appearance, composed, with eyes like polished glass. But her beauty, though perfect, held little warmth. She owned a mirror, enchanted and ancient, hung in a chamber of polished stone. Each morning she stood before it and asked, in a voice both proud and expectant, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" And each morning the mirror replied, "You, my queen, are fair to see, the fairest in the land you be." The queen would smile cool and pleased and begin her day. Snow White, meanwhile, grew in quiet corners of the castle. She wandered through gardens, talked to birds, and learned the names of herbs and flowers. Her presence was like soft music. Servants adored her. The wind seemed to follow her gently wherever she went. Time passed. The child became a girl, and the girl became radiance, still kind, still gentle, but now carrying the very beauty her mother had once wished for. Skin pale as snow, lips a soft red, hair dark as the night sky. And one morning, when the queen asked her mirror the same question, the answer changed. "You, my queen, are fair to see, but Snow White is fairer now than thee." The queen stood before her mirror, her lips pressed tight. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" The mirror replied, calm as ever, "You, my queen, are fair to see, but Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarves, is fairer still than thee." She did not scream. She only turned, cold and silent, and sent for the huntsman. He was an older man, weathered and quiet. She gave him a small wooden box. "Take her into the forest," she said. "Bring me her heart." The next day, he led Snow White deep into the woods. She followed without fear, gathering wildflowers and humming to herself. When they reached a clearing, he stopped. Her eyes looked up at him, calm and trusting. He could not do it. "Run," he said, voice trembling. "Run and never return." Snow White stared, confused. But when she saw the truth in his face, she turned and fled between the trees. She wandered for hours. The forest was thick and wild, but not cruel. Birds sang. Sunlight scattered through the leaves. She crossed streams and mossy stones, deeper and deeper, until her feet ached and the sky dimmed. Then, just before dusk, she saw it a small cottage tucked into a hill of roots and rock, with a mossy roof and warm light flickering in its windows. She knocked. No one answered. Inside, everything was tiny 7 chairs, 7 plates, 7 beds in a row. Tired beyond words, Snow White curled up across them and fell asleep near the fire. Later that evening, the owners returned. They were not ordinary men. They were 7 dwarfs, small, bearded and sturdy. They worked in the mountain mines during the day and lived simply at night. They entered and noticed something was different. The house was tidier. The dishes moved. The beds disturbed. And there, fast asleep, was a girl. They whispered among themselves, unsure what to do, until one said, "Let her rest. We'll ask her in the morning." And they did. At sunrise, Snow White woke to 7 curious faces watching her from the end of the bed. She sat up quickly. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was lost." The dwarfs looked at each other. One nodded. "You may stay if you keep our home as warm as the sand. Never open the door to strangers." Snow White agreed, tears in her eyes. So she stayed. She swept the rooms, cooked meals, and sang quietly by the window. The dwarfs returned each night to the smell of stew and the sound of gentle humming. And though her heart still carried fear, she began to feel safe. But far away, in the Queen's tall tower, the mirror whispered once more. In her chamber of cold stone, the Queen asked again, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" The mirror replied, "You, my Queen, are fair to see, but Snow White, with the 7 dwarfs, is fairer still than thee." She said nothing. Her silence was sharper than rage. That night she prepared a disguise. She bent her posture, darkened her hair with soot, and dressed in rags. As a peddler woman, she carried silken laces in a wicker basket. She found the cottage in the woods. Snow White was alone, singing by the window. "Pretty laces, dear child," the woman called. Snow White hesitated but opened the door. The disguised queen smiled warmly. "Let me lace your bodice. You'll look so lovely." Trusting, Snow White allowed her to tighten the cords, but the queen pulled them too tight. Snow White gasped and collapsed. When the dwarfs returned, they found her pale and breathless. They loosened the laces quickly, and breath returned to her lips. She woke dazed and frightened. The dwarfs warned her again, never open the door. But the queen tried once more. When the mirror told her Snow White still lived, she crafted another disguise, this time a traveling comb seller. She made a poisoned comb with a sweet scent and a sharp curse. Again, she reached the cottage and called out gently. Snow White, though wary, opened the window. "Let me gift you this lovely comb," the woman said. Snow White accepted it and ran it through her hair. At once, she dropped to the floor. The dwarfs found her again in time. They removed the comb and waited. Her eyes fluttered open, and she whispered, "I'll be careful, I swear." But still, the mirror told the truth. So the queen returned a third time. She prepared a poisoned apple, red on one side, white on the other. The red half held the curse. Disguised as a kindly farmer's wife, she made her way to the cottage. Snow White saw her through the crack of the door. "I cannot take anything," she said. "The dwarfs warned me." "Then share it with me," said the woman kindly. "I'll eat one half, you the other." She sliced the apple in two. The queen bit the white side. Snow White, reassured, took a bite from the red. She smiled, then dropped without a sound. No ribbon to untie, no comb to remove. The dwarfs tried everything, but Snow White no longer stirred. Her face was calm, her hands still. She looked more like a statue than a body. They could not bury her. So they made a glass coffin and placed her inside, deep in the forest clearing. Her hair dark as night, her skin white as snow, her lips soft red, and there she slept, still, silent, as if dreaming. Time passed. The dwarfs watched over her. They kept the forest clearing tidy, left flowers near the glass coffin, and lit candles each night. Animals came and went. None touched her. Even the wind seemed quieter. Snow White remained still peaceful, as if asleep. One day, as spring softened the air, a prince rode through the forest. He had no clear destination, only a sense he should keep going. A shimmer through the trees caught his eye. He stepped off his horse and walked through the brush. In a small clearing, he saw it, a coffin of glass, framed in silver. Inside lay a young woman, pale and calm, with hair dark as ink and lips like soft roses. He stood silently, staring. Something about her felt familiar. Not her face, but the feeling in the air, like a memory of a dream long forgotten. The dwarves arrived from the trees and stood watchfully. He turned to them. Who is she? They told him her name, her story, her fall. He listened without speaking. Then, quietly, he asked, "May I take her? I do not wish to disturb her rest. I only know I was meant to find her." The dwarfs hesitated, then nodded. His voice was gentle, his gaze kind. With great care, the prince and his men lifted the coffin. As they moved her through the forest path, something shifted. The angle, the step, the time. No one knows. Put the piece of poisoned apple in her throat dislodged. Snow White drew breath. Her fingers twitched, her lips parted, her eyes open. The prince saw her stir and dropped to his knees beside her. She blinked, confused. He smiled, warm, quiet. She smiled back. The dwarfs, still nearby, heard the sound of life and rushed toward her. Joy burst from them in soft laughter, quiet cries, tearful relief. Snow White sat up slowly, the forest bright around her. Later, she left the woods, riding with the prince to his distant home. But she never forgot the dwarves. She visited often, bringing fresh bread, stories, and song. The prince built her a quiet garden, filled with flowers like those from the woods. They walked it together in the evenings, read old books by lamplight, and often sat in silence, content just to be near each other, far away. The queen asked her mirror once more, "Who is the fairest of them all?" But the mirror remained silent, and the queen, in time, faded from the world she tried so hard to rule. Snow White lived gently. She feared nothing, loved deeply, spoke softly, and the world, at last, let her rest in peace. Though many believed the tale ended with the prince and Snow White riding off into sunlight, real stories are quieter and longer. They returned to his castle, a place surrounded by slow rivers and green hills. Snow White was welcomed kindly, not with trumpets, but with warm blankets, soft bread, and rooms filled with gentle light. She took her time adjusting. She wandered the gardens. She sat by the windows, watching clouds. Sometimes she spoke, sometimes she didn't. The prince never rushed her. She wrote letters to the dwarfs often. They visited her to carrying small tools, dried herbs, and quiet smiles. When they came, they stayed in guest rooms near the library. Snow White always had something ready for them: berry jam, knitted scarves, a song. She planted a small tree from the forest beside the castle wall. It grew crooked and slow, but she liked that. Some things need more time, she said. The prince gave her space. He had no need to impress her. He read to her sometimes, told her things from old books, let her sleep when she needed, let her sit in silence when she didn't want words. Their love wasn't loud. They often ate quietly. He'd pour her tea. She'd hand him a page. No need to fill the space between. She never wore a crown. She didn't care for titles. The people simply called her Snow White, and that was enough. She helped in the gardens, spoke kindly to travelers, and remembered everyone's name. Sometimes, in spring, she'd sit beneath her tree and hum the same tunes she sang in the dwarf's cottage. She missed that life but wasn't sad. It was a good chapter, she'd say. I just turned the page. As for the mirror, it was never found again. Some say it shattered. Others say it faded when no one needed it anymore. The queen was never seen again. No storm marked her passing. No statues were built. She simply vanished, like fog in sunlight. Years went by. Snow White grew older, but her kindness didn't fade. Her hair silvered slowly. Her voice stayed soft. She never told children what to be, only reminded them to be gentle when they could. She became a story herself, not one about beauty or glass coffins, but about quiet mornings, fresh bread, and the kind of love that listens. The tale of Snow White didn't end with a kiss. It ended with peace, and that, after everything, was the happily ever after she truly deserved. Thank you for spending this quiet time with me. If you made it to the end of the story, I hope you're already fast asleep or drifting there softly. If you enjoyed this bedtime tale, feel free to leave a like or a comment to let me know you were here. And if you'd like more sleepy stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe. There's always room by the fire. Until next time, sleep well.